I'm focused on this theory cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. This is Christina Barn. You guys are watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today I want to talk about a TikTok that I stumbled across. It was a clip from a debate, and I've seen the person around who's like leading the debate against a liberal. I'm unaware of his name, but someone was going off about Trump being a felon and asked a question like, do you want a felon representing us, and do you think he represents American exceptionalism? And I started thinking about it. I'm just like, there's a lot of things about Donald Trump that obviously that I'm not fond of, like personal quirks and different I don't know, relationship things that have gone on in his life, and sometimes how he conducts himself, and other time like I could make a list of things that I'm not fond of, that I don't exactly want, you know, exemplified on a world stage or whatever. But his rise to power and his introduction to power, or I guess he didn't really go anywhere. Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. Like, it's pretty darn amazing when you think of all the things that came against him. So I want to talk about that. I'm also going to play a clip from the interview with Barbara Cochran that I mentioned the other day, but I didn't show you guys because I think it really feeds into I guess this point that I'm trying to make. I also want to talk about the story in Louisiana, how there was a young woman who's a minor who was coerced by her mother to take abortion pills, and she got the pills from New York. So the New York doctor is being indicted, and the mother is being indicted for coercing the abortion to occur. This young woman wanted the pregnancy. She wanted the baby. She wanted to, have a gender reveal, all that stuff. She was planning for it. Her mom made her take the pills. So it's pretty incredible, the sort of comments that are coming from the pro-choice side, but I'm not entirely surprised. Because I've had different conversations with people in the past about, at the end of the day, they'll bring up well, what if a minor gets pregnant, et cetera, et cetera. And the reality is that sometimes when you say, well, what if they want to keep the baby? Some people have said, well, you would still force them to have the abortion. So it's not so much about choice then at that point. So you're getting into some really dicey territory if that is the case. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream and run my website, all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I very much do appreciate it. And I'm going to encourage you guys to check out different books that I have written. I have 18 altogether. 2 are nonfiction. The rest are fiction. I do have historical fiction fantasy. I said I'd be pimping this all month, and I am, and I will be. But it's my book, Of Course God. I'm sorry. There's a book, Of Course God is Blatant Against Abortion. I'm used to mention that. But this is a The Color of God's Eyes and Song of the Devil's Lips. So imagine like it's a I'll just briefly give the synopsis. The main character Charlotte, when she was a little girl, she was purchased by a woman named Lady Cohen, and she believes she's supposed to, take care of the master's house and attend those sorts of needs and etc. But when she gets older, she realizes that she was actually selected because she has a special ability. So it's really cool. Think the American Civil War meets X-Men. So go ahead and check that out. If you guys go to blacktnews.com, there's a banner that'll take you to my book website if you go to the store. But if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, there's a bunch of links in the description. One of them is an Amazon link, and it'll take you to a page with a bunch of my books on it. Question: is writing books hard? Depends who you're talking to. Specifically, like, I don't know, for me, I guess not. When I first started, I've always liked writing. I was songwriting when I was like, I like to say I started songwriting at like 9 and started writing good songs when I was like 11, 12. And so there's like a CD of me and my family from back in the day. I was like around like 12 and stuff. It was a long time ago. But one song I guess I still sing it today. I got to sing it like on missionary trips and sing it all across the country as we travel and stuff. It's a really good song. It's called The Clay. It sounds a little obviously dated if you listen to it now because it's like early 2000s. But people like asked if I would remake it, and perhaps I will. I guess I will. But I like to write a lot in high school. Actually, the first kind of book that I put together was for an English class, a creative writing class, and I made a book about, it was a picture book. And I don't have the files for that, so I'd have to totally remake the whole thing. Because I don't think I have a physical copy. I think that maybe got lost in my move. But in my creative writing class, I also like made a manga. Like it was 2 chapters of a manga. I actually went to school for animation at CCS in Detroit, and due to financial reasons, I couldn't really finish. And then I was at home, and I started seeing these reports about Stephanie Meyer, who is the writer of Twilight. And so I saw a report that said that she's basically going to be the next J.K. Rowling, and who's the author of Harry Potter. And so my sisters were really into Twilight, so I picked up Twilight, and I was like, I can totally do this. I can do something like this. So I started writing, and in 6 months, I finished my first book. So after and I had painted a mural of Jesus over a church baptismal. With that money, I bought a laptop because I was like confiscating my brother's at the time. I started writing, and in 6 months I had my first book. And then I think I wrote a sequel to that one and that one. And then I was like, okay, I started querying for the books, and people said, "Oh, you'll have a lot of great success," but it's just not for me, which I thought was odd. So I was trying to go the whole agent route and stuff. So I kept writing, and then I started to write other books, and I don't know if Almost Alive is like the second one I did, or Super Kid was like the second series that I started. But I wrote a book called Super Kid, and it's loosely based off stories about my dad. And so my dad and older sister was like, why don't you just like put these out yourself? And so I was kind of terrified of the prospect at first. And then I was like, no, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And so I put out Super Kid. That was my first one that I put out. And then I kept just making books. And so I have 18 altogether. Funny thing is, though, the book that I first wrote, I have not published that yet. It is dated because that was like 2008, I guess. And there's like pop culture references in there that are kind of old, and and I'm a much better writer than when I started writing back then. So I have to rewrite the whole thing. And I kind of didn't, it was like my baby. And I was just kind of waiting for, I don't know, kind of more security, whatever. Because I just didn't like the idea of it, putting it out there, and then what if it falls flat on its face. But I have, I don't know, I guess I have a big enough library, and they're all my babies now, so I don't think that one's particularly my baby so anymore. So I would just have to like rewrite that one, but it's a good series. But I have a lot of different series that are out and about right now. So um I don't know. I have to like finish a few before maybe I re-release the baby. But thank you for your question. It just took about 6 months to kind of pop it out. I mean, when you're writing what you know and what you really love, it takes a less amount of time. When you are really world building and have to do a lot of research and stuff with different things, like my historical fiction book, actually that only took me about literally a month to write. I guess that was the fastest book I wrote, but I was so into it. I would come home and I just devote like all my time to it. All my extra time was devoted to that book. And I was really feeling it, and I liked the American Civil War. It was interesting, doing all that research to, you know, um, compile it together. But it was more research for the second book, so that took some more time. So yeah, I was but some people it takes some years to make the kind of perfect book. If you're making some kind of beefy um American novel, then that might take a long time, perfecting that craft. And once you actually finish the book, you're not really finished because you have to keep editing and editing and editing and getting it right. And then you might want other readers, like beta readers, to read to see how it is and to fix it up and, make adjustments and so on. Think about like movies, they do test screenings. And like I was watching, some clips of the test screening for Final Destination, which they're making a new one, by the way, and they had like a totally different ending originally. And the audience didn't like it, so they had to go and rewrite it and stuff. So yeah, it just kind of depends, but the usually it takes me anywhere from like I guess average about 6 months, but depends. You'd love to see my painting of Jesus. Guys, we're so derailed right now. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's on my Facebook page, like my personal page, way back when. Let me see. Any other questions? Thank you. It's Christina with the CH though, but thank you. um, I always tease people when they say their name is Christina. I'm like, you spell it with a CH? And they're like, yep. I'm like, oh, so you spelled it the right way. And they always laugh. But, of course, I don't use those jokes for Christina's that spell it with a K. Let me see if I can find it for you guys real quick. I don't do a lot of traditional art stuff now because I found it. I don't know, don't have a lot of time. Like I probably could have I don't know, maybe did the illustrations for bigger, but man, that would have taken so much of my life. And my sister's really good at painting, so so yeah, that's it. It's 8 feet by 11 feet actually. Let me make it a little bigger. So I had to build it was over a baptismal, so I actually had to build a floor. And I had to rent a scaffold. And so I'm not a big fan of heights. So but yeah, it was something I was proud to finish, definitely. And pastor kind of tried to cheat me out of my last bit of money, so my sister had to go in with me to the church to act out a little bit. But yeah, there's a I took a ton of art classes in high school. Like I said, I went in for animation, but I just don't do a lot of traditional stuff that often. I think the last kind of art I really did was like probably for Super Kid 2. Like I did the covers for these books. And the art inside. They're not in color, but I did draw everything in here. So those are children's chapter books if you're interested. But thank you for your questions, guys. Um thank you for your questions. Anyway, let's get to the topic at hand. So, I want to show you guys this TikTok. And then I want to let me share my screen. Get that open. One second. Now again, I'm not sure who I've seen this guy before. I just don't know his name. Maybe you guys know his name and somebody in the comments can let me know. But I've seen, his videos around. But he's debating this young woman and she goes on and on and on about Trump being a felon, and it posed an interesting question.
American exceptionalism to have a felon representing our country.
I think Donald Trump is
domestic and foreign relations.
Yeah.
You think that's something you're proud of?
I'm proud of Donald Trump.
You're proud. So you support felons being CEOs and executives. That's what you want to see. That's the America, exceptional America you want to see.
You use the word felon to invoke imagery of scary crime.
No, I'm just asking you.
Tax impropriety. With all of
that,
these, like,
you think those are the people that are going to uphold democratic values of honesty, respect,
yes.
American exceptionalism.
Okay, so very interesting. The anger, the outrage, the you think felons should be CEOs, and it's interesting because on one hand you hear so many Democrats trying to restore rights for felons, make sure that they can vote and all this other kind of stuff. But when Donald Trump was a felon or about to be a felon, he wasn't technically a felon until he was sentenced. It was felons are bad. You want a felon to run for office? You want a felon to be president? That's crazy talk. Felons are bad. How dare you? Aren't you ashamed of the felon? And there were some Democrats who pointed out it's kind of crazy how we're talking about Trump and his felon status when I thought we were for these people. If they serve their time and do their debt to society, or serve their debt to society, we don't want them to reform. Like, we don't want, like, yesterday I talked about David Wood, and he's a Christian apologist, and he has an amazing conversion story, and he tried to murder his dad. He was a psychopath, and it's a very fascinating story. But he ended up meeting a Christian in prison, and the Christian had answers to all of his objections, and then he tried to prove his fellow inmate wrong, tried to prove the gospel wrong, the Bible wrong, and ended up going down a rabbit hole and finding the truth and giving his life over to Christ. He's still a psychopath. He just has learned to deal with it. But am I gonna be like, I can't listen to David Wood, he's a felon? Or why? I don't know why I'd assume he has felon status. I don't know, but what he tried to do was obviously bad. There's one person in politics that I know. He's like, he served his debt to society, and some people don't want him involved in like the political landscape locally and stuff. But this dude is the number one hardworking Republican I know. And it's like, you can't say that he doesn't deserve to be recognized. Like, I can call him and get help from him. Actually, when I did my first book signing, he helped with I think he helped with the press release with the I know maybe it wasn't with that. He helped when I got ordained. Me and my there's 7 of us, 1 boy, 6 girls. We all got ordained together to work in the ministry. No, my brother was ordained first. He's a pastor of our church. But my dad ordained us all. It was right before COVID happened. It was like the last thing everybody got to do and go out before everything got shut down. It was in February. It was a very cold, stormy night. It made the local news and stuff. But he helped us get like with the press and stuff, and because we stood out these press releases and stuff because of him. And he helped with that. He's helped donate different money, like when I went to March for Life and all this kind of stuff. Just a really good, solid guy, and has helped so many people. And he has a background. So are we forever supposed to throw everyone away? Like, I mean, sometimes people do something really, really heinous, and they're in there for life. And so, but if people serve their debt to society, you don't want them ever to kind of reform. Like, they can't go have their own business. Yeah, I don't want a felon. You want a felon to be the CEO? If they go start a business and people decide to voluntarily give them money in exchange for some kind of service, or who are you to stop that? Who are you to stop that? Who are you to say that they shouldn't do like it? And it seems so disingenuous and just really, really focused on Trump. Like, it's just a hatred of Trump, so it has to distort your worldview and everything else. And after Trump had won, and they were talking about the felon stuff, because she kept pushing, and they kept saying felon, 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 this and that. And so she's like, well, if he can be president and get elected, then then people shouldn't be asking, for people's backgrounds on their applications. And I don't agree with that, man. Like, I think, people should decide whether they're going to let you into proximity and look beyond maybe what you did or whatever. But some things you want to know on a background check, and you did what you did, so it should come up on a background check. And if people want to decide to grant you redemption, I think people should grant you that extended arm, for redemption and stuff. But that has to be a decision, and we shouldn't just be withholding information and just allow everyone else to go in blindly. So I thought that was a really dumb point of Sunny, especially when they were trashing Donald Trump for being a felon nonstop. Now, with this young woman talking about Trump and does he represent America's exceptionalism? Do you really want us felon? Do you really felon to be a president? And how do you feel about that? But when people bring up his case, when they bring it up at all, leave comments in my videos or whatever, like, he's a felon. Please explain what specifically, in great detail, what Donald Trump did, like what was his crime and how he did it. Send. Usually no responses. Sometimes people will send articles and they won't explain anything. And I'm like, I know this information in the articles, and it doesn't, and even in these articles, it's not really explaining much in them. Like, you don't have an understanding of what he did. Because if you had an understanding of what he did, you'd think it was stupid. You would think it was stupid. As Craig said, it is political. It was totally political. Which Governor Andrew Cuomo was like, they only went after him like this because it's Donald Trump. Out of all the things he was indicted for, this was by far the dumbest that he got convicted over. I saw a clip of Sunny on TikTok, and she was talking to, I think, Fetterman, and she said Donald Trump was convicted for various crimes. I'm like, various crimes? Like, no, it's like 34 counts of like the same thing. What are you talking about? He wrote a check or wrote some checks and split up payments to Stormy Daniels. And if anything, it should have been a misdemeanor, not some kind of crime, alleging that he broke federal election law, which he didn't, if you understand federal election law. So I want people to understand what he did. and explain it. And ask yourself, is what he did that worse than what other presidents have done or allegedly done? It's not even worse than other things that Trump has allegedly done. You know? So, the Fallon thing is stupid. But as far as, do you think that Donald Trump represents American exceptionalism? And so I started thinking about it, and I'm like, there's definitely lots of things about Trump I don't care for and things I don't like. Like when the Hollywood Access tape thing happened, oh gosh, it was comments, grab her by the such and such. That was probably one of the only times we saw him apologize, get on TV and just like, it was locker room talk. I shouldn't have said it, whatever, but it's locker room talk. It was apology, but it was very firm, very firm. And people were down. Oh my gosh. I worked at the Michigan Republican Party at the time. Oh, this is not too much TMI, but people were down. And in my mind, some people thought he should drop out or whatever. I thought that was like surrendering and just to Hillary basically at that point, which I'm sure is why they released the Hollywood Access tape. And it was right before like the second debate. And when the second debate happened, I'm like, if he doesn't come in and just kill, it's over. The whole thing's about to be over. And of course, he came in and just killed it. He just absolutely killed it. That was the you'd be in jail, that performance. But before that even happened, he had a press conference. I don't know how old you are watching. I think everybody's probably about my age or older. But if you guys recall, during that time, maybe everybody wasn't into politics at the time. Before that debate, Donald Trump had a press conference of two of Bill Clinton's accusers and a woman who, when she was a young girl, she was raped, and Hillary Clinton represented her accuser. So he had a press conference before his debate with those three women. Like, he wasn't playing. Like, he was asked before, if Hillary Clinton comes after you for some of your misogynist comments or your issues with women, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to bring up her husband. I'm going to bring up her husband if she does that. And so the line was crossed with the Hollywood Access tape. So Donald Trump went nuclear, and there's probably no greater debate than that debate with him and Hillary. That was like top tier, best probably performance. Maybe I'll go back and watch it. There's a comedian who's like, you should go back and just like go watch those earlier debates. He used some of the Republican debates, and when he just was like, Rand Paul's ugly, or stuff like that. But the Hillary one, incredible. So he came to kill, and he did. He just destroyed, annihilated, man. But the Hollywood Access tape, which most people after the election, I did a recount. We did a recount. So when the recount ended in Michigan, I was, putting my stuff away for the Michigan Republican Party, whatever. And there was somebody who was representing Jill Stein, who was just really a Hillary fan. And then there was a Hillary team there, and we were all talking. And it was me and everybody else was guys. And they all agreed that it was locker room talk, and that they all spoke like that. I was the only one who didn't have a language like that, like in my vocabulary. But they all admitted that they say worse than the thing that Donald Trump said. So they didn't really think that was a confession of Donald Trump going around really like sexually assaulting women. They thought it was locker room talk. They acknowledged that. But I thought the grotesque thing about the Access Hollywood tape is that he was talking about some woman that he knew was married, who he was trying to kind of get with. Like, that was another conversation. I'm like, how did y'all all just ignore that piece of the conversation? I'm like, are y'all all cheating on your spouses? Are y'all all cheating? Like, how did y'all just, why we just speed past that? Why are we just focused on this line here? I'm like, that's the worst thing. I'm like, so now I'm looking at him sideways and like America sideways. Cause I'm like, that was gross. Like, that's bad. That's wrong. That's immoral. Y'all just ignored that. I went for the locker room talk. It was just, I didn't get it. This is a man who's he's had 3 wives, which I find really interesting that he's had such a good dynamic with his children. They like really respect him and love him, and like I'd be interested. I assume he wouldn't write it, but him and his ghostwriter could sit down and I don't know, write a book about family or something. Because I'm just not that I think I need like that kind of advice from the Donald, but I'm just curious how all that dynamic works. To that they all have those kind of good relations with him across 3 different women and marriages. So I think there's fascinating things about him. There's things about his character I'm not fond of, okay? And there's policies that I'm not fond of. If you've been following me through the election and the primary and even through the main general election, I had lots to say, lots of criticisms. But man, his comeback is the stuff of legends. Is the stuff of legends. And when you consider all the things that they did to Donald Trump, how he was able to, I would say, overcome a tyrannical government to get this position back. I don't know. That kind of seems like American exceptionalism a little bit to me. It kind of seems like that a little bit to me. It kind of seems like that to me. So I want to go ahead and play this clip of Barbara before I continue on with my thought process about this. Because Donald Trump isn't like a normal person. He's a complicated person, but he's got some really extraordinary things about him.
You knew Donald Trump way back in his New York real estate days.
What a charmer.
And, despite, whatever you say about him, even you say he's a great salesman. What is his sales technique? Why is he so great?
He is a phenomenal salesman. He's not a great salesman. He's probably the best salesman I've ever been in the company of. And I spent a lot of time with Donald because he's 5 years older than me, I think 4 years, and he was raising his company right parallel with me raising mine. And so I did a lot of work with Donald. And I can tell you, he is the best salesman I've ever met in my life. I watched him walk into a situation, for example, selling the Plaza Hotel to the Chinese out of Hong Kong, it was in Taiwan, group of Asians, wealthiest families in Hong Kong. And they were there because they were interested in the Plaza Hotel. And I was the broker, or my brokers, we were all at the table, and we were like really hungry to make this deal. And I watched him totally not pitch the Plaza Hotel, bury it, and talk about the land masses on the Hudson River and the buildings that would be there. They were not the least bit interested. They just wanted to buy the Plaza Hotel. Like a customer, I want to buy it, and Donald was near bankruptcy, he really needed the money to bail out. And I watched him, I thought he was so off. He wasn't. They bought the land and built all those towers on the West River, as we know it today. All those Trump towers along the river. That was the deal. How did he do that? I'll tell you what his masterful mind does. He is a genius at picking out the vulnerability of someone's personality. He can smell it, sense it, and trust it. Okay. So, for example, if you were to walk into a business meeting with Donald and you're saying whatever you're saying, I've seen it time and time again, he could see what your weakness is. And not physically reach over and put his finger on it, but he just could see what your weakness is and play into it. Not the nicest thing in the world, but it's a certain gift I've never seen anyone else. And that's exactly what he did in the election. I think he put his finger on what the weakness was, the vulnerability of people, and he knows how to touch it, just so. And people go along for the ride. He is a phenomenal salesman, I have to say. He could sell anything. And he did.
He could sell anything, and he did. And that I think that video is a couple of years old. Like I think that was probably after maybe the first election. I don't think that was after this recent one. But as far as like touching on people's weaknesses, you could think back to Jeb, like people originally, like when they were all going in the election, it was Jeb. People were talking about like Jeb and Marco Rubio and like them fighting for the donors, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, it's about to be a Clinton versus a Bush." Like that's what people were gearing up for, and he immediately, goes for takes out Jeb and just like undermines him and makes Jeb Bush, who's a part of this dynasty of presidents and political power, and just makes him seem like a joke. And like was a low energy Jeb, and um he just like tactically could cut. And sometimes I was like, I didn't like different stuff that he said, but he didn't need to win everybody in the primary. He just needed a plurality, and he came in with a lot of notoriety already from jump because of his name and recognition, different things he had done, and Apprentice and so on. I'm a huge fan of Apprentice, and he just took it, or even different things that he went after DeSantis on, which he knew where to poke certain things because of Susie Wiles and other people who worked for DeSantis were, working under Trump and stuff, but just knew the right places to cut to go on those different weaknesses. But at the same time, he could see different things to pitch to people to get them to focused on what they really want. And I mentioned this the other day, but I mean, his issue coming in, and it hasn't changed, but the issue that he knew that the American people really cared about, that he could latch on, where he could, differentiate himself from the other Republicans with, was immigration. Because you had other Republicans who were soft, people who were thinking about an amnesty bill and all that stuff. And Donald Trump is like, we need a wall. He had like a signature piece, his different promises that he would make. And he became the figure, the juggernaut. And when, he was kind of done, didn't want to do the debates, he decided he didn't want to, and he came back, and like it was just the Trump show. And part of being the Trump show was outside of his control too. I mean, the media wanted those eyeballs and those dollars, and it was an effort on their part, I think, to also put a lot of eyes on Trump to help him rise to the top. Because Hillary Clinton, if you read the Podesta emails, her strategy was for Donald Trump to be the nominee, and then he would lose. That was what they thought. And her team thought that was too much of her strategy. Obviously, they're correct. And he ended up winning, and she ended up losing. She didn't think she could lose to him. Now, after 2020, things look pretty grim. But let me back up. Even before 2020, you knew people were against him. Hillary Clinton, to get attention off of her email, she started the Russiagate stuff. By the way, that's stuff that Obama was briefed on. So Obama knew about that. His intelligence officials, I think Brennan, like briefed him on Hillary Clinton doing the Russiagate stuff. So when they were pushing that and it became a big conspiracy, there was already intelligence that the Hillary Clinton's folks were behind that. So there was that. There was people who were like, oh, we have our insurance policy, people spying on Donald Trump's campaign after Donald Trump won. You had them trying to do things to undermine it. You had Biden suggesting that they use the Logan Act. You had Comey setting up Michael Flynn so they wouldn't have like White House counsel, so they could like catch him in a lie. Or I mean, he decided to be untruthful or whatever, perjure himself, and they went after him. But there were certain things that they did to obviously set him up. So there was all these things working together against Trump. There was all this crazy stuff with public perception with Trump, and he wanted Comey to say something. And he got frustrated with Comey, let Comey go. Then it launched the investigation, the Mueller report, and all this stuff. And they did all these things to undermine him throughout his entire presidency. He got impeached twice. The first time for the dumbest of stuff. Really, it was for investigating Joe Biden. That's really, if you read the impeachment documents, it's basically what it lays out. They say it's obstruction of power, but but that's basically the reason. And they impeached him, over January 6th, which they had a lot of details that weren't incorrect. They really did it too fast, where I feel like there was any sort of true due process or whatever. So he ended up, getting out as far as that goes. And I don't know, from my understanding, he kind of was ready to live life a little bit, golf and do Truth Social and have his say here or there. But as far as running, as far as what I heard, it was like settled. He's going to do it when they decided to raid Mar-a-Lago. When they decided to raid Mar-a-Lago, they could have left this man alone, but they didn't want to leave him alone. And they raided Mar-a-Lago, and they went after him financially with Letitia James, the AG in New York, where they were trying to say that he overvalued his property, even though the bankers were like, no, we're good. No one was harmed. And then in the appellate court, they're like, what the heck went on with this case? This is crazy, but they just wanted to get Trump. Fani Willis wanted to get Trump. That whole thing ended up exploding, but she couldn't keep it in her pants. You had Jean E. Carroll going after him and all that kind of crazy stuff. But the craziest story, of course, was Alvin Bragg going after him for the Stormy Daniels check situation, and the fact that he got no justice in New York, and they convicted him over that really, really stupid thing that doesn't make sense for election law anyway. It is just bonkers. They tried to get him kicked off the ballot. They tried to use the 14th Amendment against him, even though he wasn't convicted of inciting an insurrection. They did all kinds of things to try to stop him. And at the end of the day, they could not. And I would say all the sort of measures they used to try to stop him were abusive. Especially when you consider the fact that he was impeached for going after his political opponent. And folks can say, well, but though there's no order or anything from the Biden administration to go after Trump. But it is his DOJ. And I'm not saying people shouldn't go after people if they do something wrong. But we know some of this stuff was absolutely wacky. And Donald Trump, for people saying that, oh, he's going to be terrible, he's going to be a dictator, he's going to be this, he decided it wasn't good to go after Hillary Clinton. Now, with her email situation, Comey made up a gross negligent standard or something like that. I think they kind of had her dead to rights with the email situation. But Trump, even though, despite all the lock her up, I went to rallies. I know what people said. He was like, I don't want to hurt her. That would be terrible. Wife of a former president, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go after her. They did not show him the same kind of grace. Biden could have, it was a contentious time. You had COVID, all this stuff. BLM, people were tired. People were you could have just been like, we're not going to do that. We're going to let this man just sunset out of our existence, be a nasty chapter in our lives. Yeah, according to their perspective, they could have just let it go. They didn't want to let it go because they had to punish this man, and the resistance had to keep working. And they went after him. They went hard after other people who helped him, with the different state AGs going after people who were electors and stuff, like the Attorney General of Michigan going after the electors in Michigan, and elderly people who were retired, farmers going after them, trying to put them in jail. And at the same time doing that stuff revolving around Trump, they're going after they want the Patriot Act used on parents who complain about, inappropriate books in kids' schools. And the National School Board Association conspiring with the White House to make a letter to send it to the AG to say, hey, can you use the Patriot Act? Stuff that was directed like anti-Catholicism and just all kinds of weird stuff. The prosecuting people on the FACE Act, putting pro-lifers in jail. there was so much that was going on where Trump just kind of became the symbol of the government doing wrong to people, but it was more than just him who was being persecuted. And people on the right have been persecuted under other, or done wrong, I guess I will say, in other administrations and stuff too. So the fact that he was able to combat all that and then come back and then win in a landslide. And you can say, well, he didn't win that much by the popular vote, but he did win the popular vote. That's kind of unusual. It hasn't happened in like 20 years, right, for a Republican. And he also won every single flippin' swing state. Every one. Kamala Harris barely made any gains in any county, just like wine country and stuff. Trump dominated. And it was incredible to watch. It really was. I'm so glad that I went to an election night party just to kind of feed off that energy that night and did just kind of watch it at home or at my parents' house. Like it was an incredible night. So I think him taking the W off of that after everything they went through, the government corruption, and so many people hate him and hate what Elon is doing with Doge, is because they're a threat to the big government bureaucracy. That's why they're mad. Now, Donald Trump, he'll say small government. He's not the smallest government kind of guy. Smaller than them, I would say. But he's someone who's trying to look after our interests instead of, I don't know, funding drag shows abroad. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing that all these systems are being shaken up. All these people surprised that all these folks are getting fired and let go from these government agencies after they did so much to deliberately destroy this man. Like, can you blame him for wanting to shake things up? No. And, in some regard, I wouldn't really respect if he didn't try to shake things up, knowing it would just be like making the same mistake again. Because, they probably kept too many people the first time around, but he didn't quite know what he was doing the first time around because he was really green at this. But they had time. They had time to consider, time to plan, and it's very interesting. So there's aspects about Trump that are very exceptional, that are very that are aspirational. I think one of the reasons why Elon gravitated toward Trump, like if you hear him talk about Trump being shot at Butler and his instinct to just face the crowd and say fight, fight, fight. He's like, you can't teach that. You can't teach that. And that kind of respect that he just garnered, is one of the reasons why he's working with him. I saw CNN, Abby Phillips, I think from CNN, she was talking to Scott Jennings and she said, well, people are concerned about Elon Musk because, he's unelected and because Donald Trump owes him so much because he spent so much money to get him elected. And I'm like, how does he owe him anything? I think she used the word leverage, I think. He can't be elected again. So, like, the money you pumped into him, he's not going to run for office again. This is his hurrah as an elected official. He's very old, so this is his sunset. Like it's a lame duck term. So he doesn't have to make donors happy. He can go in there and do what he wants to do. It's so stupid to say, oh, the billionaire has leverage over this other rich guy who is at the tail end of his life, probably, who doesn't have another term. No, it's silly. Elon is serving at the pleasure of the president, which is what the rest of the people in the executive branch are supposed to do. And if you don't want to serve at the pleasure of the president, you can see yourself out. You see yourself out. So it's an extraordinary story. But I think sticking it to tyrannical sort of governments is quite the American way. So it's quite the American way. And you can be mad that he's a felon all you want, but it's an extraordinary story. I love when people compare it to like Star Wars titles and it's A New Hope, like 2016 was A New Hope, and then 2020 was An Empire Strikes Back, and then it was Return of the Jedi. Or we could say Return of the MAGA, but it's an extraordinary story. So I there's lots of attributes that I wouldn't emulate, wouldn't want my kids, future kids to aspire toward, but lots of really fascinating attributes about Trump to actually admire. Yeah. Anyway, let me move on to the story going on in Louisiana. Now, I've seen a lot of I guess propaganda surrounding this case. In Louisiana, a doctor. Well, let me play this clip from the governor of New York first, and then we'll go into it. Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, she made something pretty much national news when she decided to do a video about a doctor who had been indicted in Louisiana because the doctor prescribed abortion pills, and the mother took the abortion pills and gave it to her child, and the child didn't want an abortion. So let's see what Kathy Hochul had to say.
We just learned the outrageous news that a New York State doctor has been indicted by the state of Louisiana for simply providing a life-saving medication to induce an abortion, mifepristone, to a patient via telehealth in the state of Louisiana.
Now, that's a heck of a way to refer to the abortion drug. A life-saving drug. Was it used to save any lives, ma'am? Was it used to save any lives? I don't think so. I don't think so. That's just, bro, like, it's right off the bat.
This is exactly the scenario we envisioned could happen and why I signed into law very tough shield laws, where I am proud to say I will never, under any circumstances, turn this doctor over to the state of Louisiana under any extradition request. And I want to also say this. This is exactly what we feared. Republicans are fighting to have a national abortion ban that'll deny reproductive freedom to women, not just in our state, but all across America. We must stand firm and fight this, and I will do everything I can to protect this doctor and allow her to continue the work that she's doing that is so essential.
So this doctor, apparently there was a form that was filled out online and they sent the pills, like a questionnaire. Didn't observe the patient. I don't think people should, like, I don't want the doctors to be able to prescribe this stuff anyway, but if they're going to prescribe this life-saving pill, as they defined it or described it rather, shouldn't you at least monitor the patient, the said patient? Shouldn't you at least do that? Because what if there is an issue, like you're pregnant with this an ectopic pregnancy, or there's something that's gone wrong or whatever, and then there's things that could go wrong anyway that land you in the hospital. You can read that on the freaking bottles. So Amber Thurman, which was a big, talking point by Kamala Harris and them, they tried to make it seem like she died because she didn't get proper miscarriage management care, because she would talk about miscarriage and she's like, roll the clip, and they play a story about Amber Thurman. Amber Thurman went out of state to go get an abortion. She had twins, and it didn't, like, it killed the twins successfully, but it didn't expel them. And so she got delayed care as far as getting the corpses for children that she's, slew out, and ended up leading to complications. So as far as what we know, it's allegedly malpractice, but they were like, this is what happens when you have a Trump abortion ban. I'm like, an abortion ban would have saved her life and the life of her twins, like a nationwide abortion ban. So there's dangerous costs to using this stuff too, but people want them shipped to them. You fill out a questionnaire online, have it shipped to you from a different state. You take it, and maybe you don't have any complications. Maybe you have to go to the hospital in the ER, like the daughter had to go to the ER over this. So this minor, and I'm not sure how old she is. People are saying she's 13. I'm not seeing articles that say that. But we do know she's a minor. There's some details about her that haven't been released because she's a minor. But she apparently wanted her baby, and she wanted to have like a gender reveal party, all that kind of stuff, and her mom didn't want her to. And the mom is the one who filled out the questionnaire, not the daughter, would be like the quote unquote patient who would need the pills. So this doctor just sending medication to different folks who's not your patient, and you're not licensed to practice in that state, and you just send them the stuff, seems so bizarre. And so obviously the wrong thing to do as a doctor. So obviously the wrong thing to do. But it is against Louisiana's laws. So there was this viral tweet from Ryan Raisins here. A minor in Louisiana got pregnant. She was excited to have a baby, was planning on a gender reveal party. Her mom conspired with a New York doctor to get a chemical abortion pill in the mail, was forced her to take it. She ended up in the hospital. You're taking the doctor's side, so seems pretty ghoulish. And there's a lot of terrible comments. Parents need to be able to control their children and make decisions that are best for them. You can't be selective about when it suits you. 13-year-olds can't consent to sex. They can't consent to major decisions like parenthood. They can't consent to anything. They're 13 and functionally retarded. And so they're justifying this mother forcibly making their child kill their grandchild. That's what they're standing up for. And there is this other post from this user here, dear readers, the child was 13. Again, I'm not sure if that's the case, but we forced children to take vitamins. She's compared the abortion bill to vitamins. To eat vegetables. Just compared killing another human to eating vegetables. Take medicine and go to sleep for their own good. Parenting is, in large part, forcing small humans to not ruin their lives / off themselves through sheer stupidity for a solid 18 to 35 years. So how about, first of all, that's a minor getting pregnant is obviously not the route you want to go. Not good. There are minors who have sex, minors can't consent, but we'll just say there are minors who date, who agree to go all the way. And I've had parents say, you might as well make sure it's safe. They've told me, or I've heard people say online or pop culture, whatever, you might as well help them do it safely. I play for you guys a video from Planned Parenthood talking about how virginity is like a social construct. It's not real. And they talked about how we need to make it comfortable, sex comfortable, whatever, and pleasurable and consent and all this stuff. And they didn't mention anything about ages on that video. And I try to tell people who say, we just need more sex education. I'm like, are you sure that the sex education, which is largely like pushed by like organizations like Planned Parenthood, etc., that it's not about normalizing sex instead of like trying to stop people from having it? Because they speak out against like abstinence education and stuff anyway. So there's folks out here having, and it's not good. I think it's not good, obviously. But if you do have sex, you do run the risk of someone having a baby. I'm aware, like I know people who did have sex at like 13, did have children, did get pregnant, and didn't want to actually keep the baby in one circumstance, and the mom wouldn't let her abort her baby, and she raised her kids. And those kids are grown up and have their own kids. And it's certainly not ideal, and it's, I would say, dysfunctional, but that doesn't mean that people should be killed. It doesn't mean that people can't grow up and get their acts together and make better decisions than prior generations and et cetera, et cetera. But one way or another, doesn't mean that you have the right to just off people. So there's just the general, you don't have the right to off people, but you should help your, child or your minor rise to the occasion, and you should try to help them. That is your grandchild, is it not? And if it's really too big of a task for them and for you, you can find a family who is equipped to do that. You should not be like, I'm going to force my child to kill my grandchild. And it's crazy because they're like, well, you can't consent to this. You can't consent to pregnancy isn't something that it matters that you consent to. Like, you can consent to sex, but once the egg and that sperm meet, there's a new life. That's not something you will to happen. And if you will it to go away, it's not going to stop. Pregnancy is, it's just a natural occurrence with your body at that point. It's just a matter of, are you going to decide to let nature take its course, or are you going to deliberately kill your offspring, or in this case, force your offspring to kill your grandchild? Where's the choice? Where is the choice? So sometimes I'll be on lives, and it's happened when I've been on live. Most time I'll just listen to lives, but about the topic of abortion, and people bring up, what happens if a minor gets pregnant? Should they be allowed to abort? And the question you can ask them is, well, let's say that they don't want to have an abortion. What do you think should happen? And I've had people say that I wouldn't allow them to have the baby, that they wouldn't allow it. So is it about choice? Is it about bodily autonomy? I don't think so. I don't think it is. I think in the case of this mother who made her baby have an abortion, her I say baby is like child, but in affectionate sort of way, but her daughter, she made her have an abortion, I assume, not just for what was best, thinking about what was best for her daughter and her future, but many times people will say that, but they're really thinking about how they're making things better for themselves. Like, a woman might say, I'm having an abortion because I don't want my child to live in poverty. Well, just someone who, grew up in tough financial times, I'd rather be alive and have struggled than not be alive. My life still has value and meaning. Thanks very much. But is it really about denying your child that experience of growing up in poverty, or is it really to deny yourself the experience of being a parent struggling through poverty with your child? Because that is tough. That is tough. Going through there's different pressures that were on like my parents, particularly my dad, growing up in tough times, and me being a child going through tough times. The sort of pressure on a parent is immense. Doesn't mean you get to kill your kids. It doesn't. So I'm going to quickly go through this article about it. But secular pro-life, just as like pro-choicers, are remarkably comfortable with forcing teenagers to get abortions. It's really messed up. And like, well, think about the trauma. Abortion is very traumatic for people, and they have to go on through life knowing that they took the life of their child, that they ended someone's life. Unless you're just going to like lie to them about what they did, but what you made them do. And even when people mention like the really, really tragic stories of like the young person and the getting there, I'm like, who's making that decision? It's not, because I don't know. I don't know many kids that be like, yeah, let me go ahead and off this kid. You know, and if you're talking about like it's, you know, they're going to die and it's like their health is like physically really jeopardized. Those are kind of different questions, but usually, you know, the baby already exists. You continue the pregnancy as far as it can go, and then you induce the labor. So you can save both lives. But there's no undoing the existence of a child when they're here. They either live for as long as they're going to live and continue out to their natural demise, or you rob them of their life. That's what it is. West Baton Rouge Parish grand jury indicted a New York doctor Friday for allegedly prescribing an abortion pill online to a minor teenage girl in Port Allen and the girl's mother for coercing her to take the medicine to end her pregnancy. District Attorney Tony Clayton said a warrant was issued for the arrest of Dr. Margaret Maggie Carpenter, 55, and the teen's 39-year-old mother, whom the advocate isn't identifying since her daughter is a minor. She and Carpenter were charged with a criminal abortion by means of an abortion-inducing drugs. If convicted, the felony carries a possible 1 to 5 year prison sentence. I don't even think that's long enough, but it is the first criminal indictment of its kind in Louisiana, Clayton said, and he wasn't aware of another case nationwide in which the doctor was charged for providing abortion pills online. And that's another thing too. People like, oh, who's going to raise the baby? Who's going to do this? Her mother could go to jail. She could lose her mother because her mother committed this crime. If you want to talk about really doing things for the sake of your children, you're about to be separated from your child for killing your grandchild. The daughter wanted the pregnancy and had a reveal party plan, the district attorney said. The criminal case quickly became a political lightning rod, New York Governor Kathy Hochul said via tweet. Louisiana is attempting to prosecute a New York doctor for providing reproductive health care after Roe was overturned. I signed laws, including a shield law, to protect patients and doctors from exactly this type of action. We will not comply with an extradition request. We will remain in a safe harbor. After Hochul's tweet, Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel said, it is illegal to send abortion pills into this state, and it's illegal to coerce another into having an abortion. Like, this doctor, like, you're just doing activist nonsense. Like, how are you treating your patient? You didn't see the patient. You didn't see the patient. You didn't talk to the patient. You didn't even send the pills to the patient. You sent them to the mother so she could give them to her daughter. Like, you are not a good doctor. The allegations in this case have nothing to do with reproductive health care. This is about coercion, and this is forcing somebody to have an abortion who didn't want one, Muriel said in a statement. Through a spokesman, Governor Jeff Landry declined to comment on the case. Following the indictment, 18th Judicial District Judge Alvin Batiste issued warrants for the arrest of both women. Providing an abortion, including abortion medication, has been banned in Louisiana since the summer of 2022, when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade with Dobbs v. Jackson ruling. In April 2024, the mother of Port Allen girl went online to request the abortion medicine mifepristone from Carpenter, the owner of the medical clinic in New York. Clayton said in an interview, the clinic is New Paltz, which is in the Hudson Valley of upstate New York. The request is made online through a questionnaire. There's no interview with the patient, said Clayton District Attorney for the 18th Judicial District. Clayton said the prescription was filled and mailed to the post office in Port Allen, where the teenage girl's mother picked it up. She got the box of pills, gave it to her daughter, and told her to take them. Clayton said the child took the pills alone. After taking the abortion pills, the daughter experienced a medical emergency, called 911, and was transported to the hospital where she was treated and stabilized. Clayton said Carpenter has been practicing family medicine for more than 20 years. She earned a medical degree from the State University of New York Downstate Medical Center of Medicine. Carpenter is CEO of Possible Health Medical in New Paltz. She also affiliated with Health Alliance Hospital's Broadway campus in Manhattan. Attempts Friday by the advocate to reach Carpenter were unsuccessful. We cannot continue to allow forced birth extremists to interfere with our ability to access necessary health care, said Chastity Wilson, executive director of Louisiana Abortion Fund. Extremists hope this case will cause a chilling effect, further tying the hands of doctors who took an oath to care for their patients. By the way, abortion is forced birth to a dead baby. Wanting the natural progression of birth to happen is not being forced birth. That's stupid. Separately, in December, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton sued Carpenter in a civil lawsuit alleging that she had sent abortion pills to a 20-year-old Texas woman. Paxton asked a judge for a temporary injunction against Carpenter that would stop the New York doctor from prescribing the abortion medication to Texans and from practicing telehealth in that state. New York adopted a shield law, which, among other things, empowers state officials to not cooperate with attempts by other states to sue or prosecute physicians who send abortion pills to people in cities and states with abortion bans. In his lawsuit, Paxton challenges the application of New York shield law, which protects the state's doctors from providing legal abortion services within the state and other states and interstate commerce. They should not be doing that again. You should not even observing the patient. There's so many things that could go wrong. So many things could go wrong. Anyway. This world is sick, man. This world is sick. There was also something crazy going on, I think, in transgender community rallies in New York City as state hospitals are warned to provide gender affirming care. So we will have to probably talk about this tomorrow because we are over on time, but people were rallying in Manhattan because I guess different clinics said that they were canceling appointments for people under the age of 19, and they canceled appointments for two 12-year-olds who had been scheduled to receive implants to dispense puberty blocking medication. So people marching on the streets in Manhattan because they're not blocking kids' puberty. There's a hatred of biology. of human biology and kind of its natural course. I saw a video I guess it was last night, of this girl who was pro-life and was very vocal in the pro-life community, but decided to change her mind and all her values after she got knocked up in college, and I guess thought it'd be easier to have an abortion than to have to kind of struggle and figure it out with her boyfriend in college. But so now she's very, very pro-choice, and it's a sad thing. But she was flipping out, had a pretty viral video because someone introduced in Congress a bill to try to view the 14th Amendment to recognize personhood to the preborn. And so she's like, this is going to make us second-class citizens. And I'm like, no, babe. Like, saying you don't have a special right to unalive your child because you want to be able to make a problem go away that you created while you were in college to make it, you have an easier experience. That's not treating you like a second-class citizen. But it does treat everyone like they matter. The whole time, equal rights and all that stuff. So if you believe that you need abortion to not be a second-class citizen, to be equal to men, or or just, I don't know, equal to your fetus. I don't know if that's really the point that she's making. Like, she's a second-class citizen to the baby because the baby's rights will trump hers, which isn't true. Just, you don't have a right to kill. The baby doesn't have a right to kill. The father doesn't have a right to kill. You guys don't have a right to kill. That's equal, right? You got to be in a womb once. The baby got to be in a womb once. Dad used to be in a womb. We were all in wombs once, you know. It's all equal part of the human experience. But if you think that you need abortion, and so many young women do, to be able to have equal rights, something is broken in our society and in you. You don't need this heinous thing, especially when we're talking about elective, you know. You don't need this heinous thing to be equal. You don't need this heinous thing to survive or to get by. Like, you can figure it out. You can figure it out. But you don't get to just have a kill switch. Sorry. But anyway, I gotta go. Thank you guys very much for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles. I did drop an article yesterday about the topic we talked about. It's more concise and stuff with the Alex O'Connor, David Wood debate con debacle thing. So you guys can check that out and other articles on the website. You guys can check out different merchandise that we have available at the website, like a pro-choice Men Are Sus shirt. I like that one. The You Are Not That Special shirts and mugs. The mugs are very cute. The little star. Go humble someone in your life today. We got black tea mugs, the My Money, My Business. And again, I want to encourage you guys to check out some of my books that I've written. Thank you for asking questions and being interested. I enjoyed chit-chatting about it earlier, but I have 18 altogether. 2 are nonfiction. One of my nonfiction books is, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. Now, I didn't do the cover I designed the cover overall, but the actual artwork of the hand of God reaching out to the baby, I didn't make that, but my youngest sister made that. And Tina, I talk about her all the time. And thank you to those of you who go and follow her streaming and watching her as she paints her text portraits and or her little paintings and so on. And sometimes I know she goes live and she works on my book, but thank you guys so much. She's very, very, very talented, but you guys can pick up that book. Covers theology, obviously, but also rights and science and all kinds of stuff. So I encourage you guys to check that out. And my other books as well. Got a lot of fiction books that you guys can choose from. Anyway, God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.